Welcome to the Timescales Interviews. I'm Grego, your host, and today I have a very special guest, none other than the extraordinary Martyn Havell. Hi, Martyn.
Hi, Grego. How you doing?
Good. How are you today?
I'm all right. I'm very happy that you called me extraordinary. I don't think that's ever happened before.
Well, people are about ready to find out why. So, my pleasure. Um, this interview is being conducted in the United States, California, and
Yeah,
also in the United Kingdom. Am I correct that you're in the UK or England?
I am. Yeah, I'm in a place called Epsom, which is in Surrey, and it's famous for holding the Epsom Derby with Epsom Racecourse, which is the big thing here, the big landmark, I guess. You would have seen the racecourse if you've seen Love Actually. It was used as the airport.
In the film Love Actually?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The airport scenes were filmed at the racecourse.
Okay. All right. So what's it like there today or tonight, actually?
It's all right. It's what is it? It's about 20 degrees. What's that? About 40 in your currency, I think.
You you just threw me off there. I can usually calculate that, but my
Yeah.
brain is not working that way right now. So you'd say it's warm?
Yeah, it's not too warm, but
Okay.
it's warm enough. Yeah, it's
Okay.
been raining a lot.
Okay. Well, I wish we had some rain. We only get rain like about 2 months out of the year. It's December
Oh,
and
wow.
January. Yeah, if we're lucky. And then yesterday we set some heat records where it just shattered a bunch of existing records, and it was the hottest day in the entire year. So um, we're hoping that that was the peak of summer. So um, folks, this sit down is a contribution to support Doctor Who Podcast Day on August 9th. And we're hoping to be able to show it to everyone, at least during the week of Doctor Who Podcast Day. And I don't think that there's really a better way to pay tribute to Doctor Who Podcast Day than to interview one of the most talented and experienced Doctor Who podcasters of the last decade to present. And Martyn, that would be you. So,
I don't know
can I
about
ask?
talented, definitely experienced.
Okay. Let me throw out a broad, open-ended question, and I promise this is going to be the only one like this today.
Sure.
Um, who is Martyn Havell, and what is a common day in life like for you?
Okay, common day in the life of Martyn Havell is very boring at the minute because I'm recovering from a hip replacement. So yeah, very little goes on. I just kind of stay in the flat. I consume a lot of Big Finish. I'm about 6 months away from being fully healed, where I can go out and about and just live my life normally.
Okay. Um, you seem a bit young to have had to have hip replacement surgery.
Yeah,
That's
it's really weird. Basically, they described it as monkey hips. So most people's hips they kind of go in like that. Mine bulged out like that. And I first started having issues with them when I was 27. And when I was 40, they finally did the left one, and now recently I've had the right one done.
okay.
Yeah, traditionally it's like an 80-year-old thing that it happens to, but
Right, right.
yeah.
That's what I thought. I had a cousin who had that done in his 20s, um, but it was because of a military combat injury, and I remember him describing the recovery process where he had to learn to walk all over again.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm having to do. Where was he stationed? Where did he get the injury?
Um, I believe it was in Iraq. I have not had a conversation with him about that. He lives far away, and it's a distant cousin, and I just remember him telling the story of that, and uh, I didn't ask him details about where and when it happened, but I do know that it was a military combat injury. I believe he was shot, and that's why he had to have his hip replacement. And I've never forgotten when I hear hip replacement now, the first thing I think is of people having to learn to walk again, and that
Yeah.
sounds very challenging. Um, so I'm glad you're well on the way to recovery. I have seen you mention that on Twitter a couple of times. So
Yeah, I'm
um,
getting there. I'm getting there.
okay, cool. All right. So do you happen to have any top secret hobbies that few people know about, like maybe skydiving or stamp collecting?
No stamp collecting. Skydiving, I used to when I was younger. I did my
Did you?
first one in Vegas when I was 18. Went out to Nevada, and there was a place there, and the plane was held together with tape. And yeah, and I had a guy who was strapped to me, and he was a foot shorter than I am. I'm 6'2", and he must have been about 5'2". And when we landed, obviously his weight pulled me down when we hit the ground. But yeah, it's amazing. Now I've got kids, I don't do any of that type of stuff anymore.
Did you?
It's not worth throwing myself out of a plane now. I
Okay,
used to do sailing and stuff like that. I was very active when I was younger.
living life responsibly now, though.
Yeah.
So, you that makes me think of a couple of things. I have not gone skydiving myself, as in jumping out the airplane, but I did get to fly a plane where a friend of mine and 7 other skydivers jumped out of it, and it was crazy. I could not believe them yelling as they jumped out the plane like ah, and then they're just gone. And then even though I don't have a pilot's license, I was able to pilot a Cessna Caravan
Oh, wow.
um, because I was with a trainer, with a flight instructor. So I got to fly it around a little bit. But later I looked up the tail number. I had taken a picture of the plane, and I looked up the tail number, and I found out that that plane had crashed twice before, and 2 people had died in one of the crashes. So you say held together by duct tape.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, yeah, let's check out these small planes we get on a little bit careful before we get on them now.
Yeah. We had to watch, it was VHS back in those days. We had to watch this 5-hour VHS, like instructional videos. And then we had to lay on this plinth and like put our arms in the certain positions and stuff like that. But it was great. That there's no better, freer feeling than when you're free falling from that. It's 15,000 feet I jumped from, and for 5,000 feet of that, you're just free falling, and it's the most free I've ever felt. Like you feel like a bird
Really?
when you're. Yeah, it's incredible.
Well, that I might like to try it. And
Yeah.
I've heard people describe that feeling. Is it scary?
A little bit, but I was strapped to somebody who'd done over 150 jumps. So I felt secure that he knew what he was doing. So as long as he knew what he was doing, I was going to be okay. I did it with my
Okay.
mom. My mom jumped out as well, and she'd done a
Really?
couple. Yeah, she'd done a couple before then. My sister was devastated she couldn't do it because she was only 16 at the time. You had
Okay.
to be 18 to do it, which I
Yeah.
was. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it's
Okay.
good. You should do it. Wait till your kids are like maybe in their 20s before you do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, you said it was in Las Vegas. Um,
Mm.
eh, were you just hanging out in Las Vegas, or do you come to the United States very much?
So back in the day, I wanted to be an actor when I was 18, 19. So we went to California for 3 months in 2000 for me to try and achieve that dream.
Hmm.
You can guess how well it went because I'm not an actor and I'm not living in California.
Yeah. Well, don't feel alone, because I can tell you that there is a very high percentage of people, young and old, in California that have the dream and goal of
Mm,
becoming an actor. And I have seen schoolmates that just as soon as they were finished, they were gone to Hollywood.
mm.
And it's worked for a couple of them, but not the majority. So, uh, how long were you living in California?
We were mainly in Pasadena for
Okay.
about 2 months, and then we spent a month just kind of traveling around. So I went to San Francisco, to Carmel, Vegas, San Diego. Stayed on the Queen Mary in San Diego.
Okay.
Uh,
Uh,
Later learned that it's apparently haunted. Didn't see any ghosts. And we
yeah, there is that
yeah,
rumor.
it was a good time. It was a good time in my life, and I had a lot of girls interested in me for the first time when I was out there because I just had the accent and I was different, and that was a good time as well.
I'm not surprised. I mean, being a good-looking guy and that accent, I'm not surprised. Americans like British accents.
Mm.
And I guess the girls apparently as well. So here's a question that I have never asked anybody uh, during one of these Doctor Who and arts and performing arts related interviews. But I think I'm about to start, and you're going to get to be the first one. Have you ever seen a UFO?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I have. Yes, I
Okay.
have.
Okay.
So it was 2005. Would have been around August, September time, like late August, early September. I just finished work, and a friend of mine. I was on the tram home, and a friend of mine texted me and said, "Hey, we're in this park. Why don't you come and join us?" And it was only an extra couple of stops on the tram, so I was like, I might as well stay on. Went and met them. It was my two friends, Tracy and Letty, and they were with two other friends that I didn't know. They were friends of theirs. And they'd been having a picnic, and we just kind of hung around drinking and stuff, and just we were in the park. And at some point when it started to get dark, someone noticed there was like it was like this shaped, and there was a light here, a light here, and a light here. And it was just kind of darting around, and it was silent, and it would just be there, and then it was there, then it was there, then it would disappear for a couple of minutes, then it was back. And we're like, what is that? And we had, like, obviously it's 2005, so we had early camera phones. And I don't know if you ever tried to film a CRT TV with a camera,
Yeah.
but it's all staticky and stuff like that.
Hmm.
When we held our
Flashing.
phones up to whatever this thing in the sky was, it went like that. Like, we could not get a clear signal of it. And it was there for about an hour, I'd say, and then it just completely went. And I've
An
never,
hour?
yeah, I've never been able to find anything online about this.
And what year was this?
This is 2005. It was in Lloyd Park in Croydon.
Lloyd Park, Croydon in
Yeah.
2005. And what color was it?
I didn't see the color. We just saw the lights. So it was like a triangular kind of like this shape with like one light, two lights at the bottom, and it would just dart around. I don't know what it was, whether it's aliens or a military copter. I don't know.
Okay. People like to quickly dismiss these as weather balloons and
Hmm.
then more recently drones. But to me, it seems like if it was moving around, weather balloons don't move around quickly. And
Yeah.
and
Didn't really have drones back then either.
yeah, 2005 is a
Hmm.
bit early for drones. So um, you're not alone. I have seen one, and this is something that I don't really tell people about very much. Um, it would have been in it would have been in the early 1970s,
Hmm.
and I was about 10, and my little brother was 5, and we were in a car road trip. In America, we have this term, you probably heard of it, road
Yeah,
trip,
yeah, yeah.
where you basically get in your car and there doesn't have to be a reason, and you just take off and drive forever. And I know that we were crossing the country. We were going to drive from San Francisco to Memphis, Tennessee, on the other side of the states, and we were in New Mexico. We had only been gone for most of the first day, and when we crossed over into New Mexico, we were out in an area of desert, which is basically nothing but miles of road where you can't see the end of it, and cactuses and tumbleweeds, just typical. And I remember just a huge light that, as if there was, I thought it was a truck or something that was coming towards us. But the thing is, it came up from the horizon, and it came up above our car, and it put a huge light, which was uh, almost blinding. And I remember it being blue, and then just this really huge light, and we were pretty much speechless. And it was there for maybe a minute or
Oh,
so,
wow.
and I don't remember hearing any sound. And then all of a sudden, just it was just gone. It went to the back of us and just disappeared. So that was not a weather balloon. So anyway,
were you were you slightly like paralyzed in the car, or what
y-
was going through your mind?
it was so long ago. Um, I sort of remember my dad saying something like, "What on God's earth?"
Hmm.
Something like that. And we we were actually scared. And what we did is we went and drove to a hotel and just quit driving that night. And it's something that when you tell people about it, they have difficulty believing it. And I'm
Mm,
a little offended by that because I saw that thing
yeah.
myself, and I know for sure that that was not a weather balloon. And in the early 1970s, it wasn't a drone, and it definitely was not an airplane of any sort. It was typical. It was a saucer, and it was blue, and it had just a spotlight. It was the brightest light that I've ever seen in my life. In fact, I think it uh, co- temporarily blinded us because
Wow.
all you could see was white. It was almost as if we weren't in the car because you couldn't see anything around you because of how bright it was. So um, anyway, so we have both seen UFOs.
Yeah, the only thing that freaked me out about it is I didn't feel scared at any point, but that's probably because I was with four other people. There's five of us, so maybe I felt safety in numbers or something. The
Mhm,
only thing that really freaked me out is when we tried to film it and we got all that static on our phones because I was like, "What is this?" Because if it was a balloon or like you film a plane, it doesn't do that.
mhm.
So like, what is it? And I don't know if it was aliens. I don't know if aliens exist. I would probably think they do. The chances that we're alone in this universe are minuscule.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there must be something. I know people say, why would aliens be interested in us? And it's like, well, people on Earth study dragonflies. We study ants. Why wouldn't some benevolent being up in the sky discover us and be like, there's these ape-like creatures that are killing each other over stupid stuff. Why wouldn't they be interested to come and have a look?
Yeah. Well, as large as the universe is, I don't think that humans are even capable of calculating how large the universe is.
Mm.
And it would seem a little bit arrogant, I think, to assume that we are the only life forms. And I hope so. Yeah, I absolutely am sure that there is life somewhere else in the universe. There has to be. And I hope that during our lifetimes that we actually get to see where humans discover evidence of
Mm.
life elsewhere. Um, Now, you said that you guys used multiple phones when you tried to video
Yes,
this?
we all pulled out our phones and we were trying to film it because that's what you do now if you see something weird.
Hmm.
But yeah, just every one of our screens. I think I had a Nokia or something at that time. Um, yeah, but I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain it. And as to why we've not discovered any aliens yet is because, imagine going back 1,000 years and trying to explain the internet to someone.
Hmm.
You wouldn't be able to. So we are probably so far beneath where they are that we're like cavemen. Where it's like it would be the equivalent of trying to show a caveman an iPhone. I think that's how far behind we are on them.
Hmm.
And maybe they check in on us every so often, like, are they there yet? Have they nearly got there? And maybe when we get to Mars, maybe then we'll see more interest in us. Who knows?
Hmm. Now, Um, do you tell this story to people very often, and what sort of reactions do you get? Do you get disbelief or people thinking that you got to be crazy or something, or do you have people
Normally,
that,
people just kind of roll their eyes, and you
yeah,
just, okay. I don't tell it a lot, but if it comes up, I'll be like, yeah, I saw a UFO again. Like I'm not claiming it was aliens, but by the
Right.
definition of an unidentified flying object,
Hmm.
I have seen a UFO.
Okay, cool. So we both have.
Yeah, yeah.
That's that's interesting. I find that I don't typically initiate that conversations like, "Hi, I'm Greg. I've seen a UFO. Have you?" I don't usually go there. But if someone else mentions that they have, I don't mind telling it. And you can get some odd reactions. But so moving on here past UFOs and aliens, can you tell us about your podcast and your site badwilf.com?
Yeah, so I have, how many do I have now? 3 podcasts. We
Three.
started
Okay.
Bad Wolf. It was originally a Doctor Who podcast, and we just took, obviously, you got Bad Wolf in Doctor Who, and then you have the character Wilf. And I just thought it'd be funny to amalgamate those and make Bad Wilf. And we started covering Doctor Who, but then pretty quickly on, my co-host lost his love for Doctor Who. So we paused that and started covering just all general film and TV and stuff. And then eventually I got 2 new co-hosts, a guy named Sam Michael and Chris Walker Thompson. Chris does the Patrick Troughton voice. You might have seen him
Oh,
on YouTube and
what?
stuff. Yes.
I you, wow. No, yeah,
Yeah.
I am very impressed with his work.
Yeah. So they came on board to Bad Wolf. And
Mhm.
then Jared and I, who I started the show with, we would do film reviews, and I do interviews. I get like interviews and stuff like that. And some
Right.
of Sam's friends, the feedback they gave him is they didn't know what the show was, because some weeks it was Doctor Who, other weeks
Hmm.
it was a chat show, other weeks it was like something else. So we decided to split the shows. So now we have a Doctor Who podcast that is called Running Down Corridors.
Hmm.
Sam's now left, but I do that with Chris and our friend Abby. And I do Bad Wolf still. That's on a break until September because of the hip replacement stuff. But yeah, that's going to
Hmm.
come back. And I've just launched Martyn and. It was originally called Martyn Meets, but search engine optimization and all of that, it wasn't
Hmm.
getting any results. So I changed it to Martyn and that's going to be where I put the interviews.
Okay. And
They all go up on the website badwolf.com. So that's like the central hub.
okay. Yeah, and I do highly suggest Martyn's site, badwilf.com. It's BADWILF.com. And
That's
I've used it several times just in the last couple of days, actually as recently as this morning. And
oh,
it's a
wow.
really easy to use site in where it's very direct, where you can find exactly what you're looking for with the buttons real quick. It's a clean site. A good job on that. Um,
I can't take any credit for that. That was my good friend Pete Fagan, who is known as Beeble Pete online. He's a sometimes member of Bad Wolf. He's very busy. He's an American that lives in London actually, but he
okay.
still does a lot of work for American companies. So he's often 8 hours behind. So his availability to podcast isn't as clear as we would like. But yeah, he still does website stuff for us and like updates it and makes it look nice. There's a lot of times I just send him an email and like, Pete, it's broken, and he gets to work and fixes it.
Nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's good to have people to work with, and these days, it's getting easier and easier to find other people online. In
Yeah.
fact, I have a theory here. I want to ask you if you might agree. Think that there was a silver lining of COVID lockdowns, where I
Yeah.
think that it not only brought uh, Doctor Who fandom together, basically brought everyone in the world of all likes and interests together. But in our case, being Doctor Who fans or aficionados, um, it seems as if it brought fandom closer together, and it also taught everybody to learn how to use Zoom. So now it
That's
seems
true.
as if Zoom and other software packages, of course, and other formats of communication, phone and phones, but it seems as if it has brought people closer together to where there actually was at least some advantage that came out of COVID lockdowns. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I first got on Zoom. I missed the whole Zoom bubble. everyone was doing quizzes on Zoom and stuff. And I thought, well, I wouldn't do a quiz normally. So I didn't partake in any of those. Katie Manning, here's the Doctor Who twist. I asked, do you want to come on my podcast? And she's like, yes, but I'll only record with Zoom. So I was like, okay, I had to get my 11-year-old daughter, who was like 9 at the time, to show me how to use Zoom. And I don't know if you've ever had to ask your kids for tech advice. You could see a little bit of respect in their eyes just dwindles a little bit for you.
Well, my wife, she's the tech geek, and I am amazed at her patience with how I'm not very good with technology these days. So you had that experience with getting to meet Katie Manning by Zoom. How cool is that?
Yeah, she's a very busy person. So we've been trying to do the interview for about a year at that point. And I think she just messaged me one morning and said, I've got half an hour at 12.
Oh.
And then we did it. Yeah, it was good. She's so nice. Lovely lady.
I know. Katie Manning is an absolute gem, and she is coming to the States, I believe, in a couple of weeks here to go to the Long Island Doctor Who convention. And I wish I could go to that. I just seeing that Katie Manning is there is something that's made me seriously consider just picking up and flying over to New York. But I don't think I can do that right now. So yeah, she's an absolute gem, and congratulations for getting to meet her. I thank goodness your phone was on and you saw that message, right?
Yeah. And also it brought Russell T Davies back to Doctor Who, because it's those I can't remember who sorted out the rewatches. Emily Cook? Was it Emily Cook?
Emily Cook, correct.
Yeah,
That was Emily
she started
Cook.
out those rewatches, and then Russell T Davies started getting involved, and he came back to Twitter and he started writing short stories, and that's what reignited his passion for Doctor Who, and that's why he's back now. So COVID had a direct correlation with Russell T Davies and David Tennant and Catherine Tate coming back to Doctor
Who. Really? Now, I had not really put 2 and 2 together like that, but you're right. So COVID definitely had a silver lining for Doctor Who fandom, and I'm wondering the other effects of it that we don't actually know. It definitely taught people to communicate better, and so when Katie Manning messages you and says, I've got 30 minutes at noon, you drop everything, right?
I got this message about 10:30. So yeah, literally didn't have much prep time, so I went to her website. Her website's really good, actually. If anybody's interviewing Katie Manning, I'd recommend looking at her website, because she's got everything laid out there. And buy some of her autographs if you go into it. There we go. I've paid her back. I said buy some of her autographs if you go to her site.
Oh, buy some of her autographs. Okay,
yeah. I'm just saying that because she did that interview for me. I'm trying to help her out.
Okay, but, awesome.
So I went on her website and I quickly looked at stuff, and then I asked my friend Chris Walker Thompson to come on as well, because I knew he'd worked with Katie on something before. So it was nice to get those two back together. And yeah, we had half an hour chatting with her, and she was just lovely.
Okay. Yeah. Now that kind of leads into my next question. You do interviews, correct? Yeah. And those are listed on your website. How long have you been interviewing people?
Almost as long as the podcast has been around. So in 2010, even when nobody knew what a podcast was, we were trying to get people on. And the only reason I started the website is because in those early days, when I would say to someone, do you want to come on this podcast? They were like, okay, what's your website? Right. And then I'd say, oh, I don't have it. You've got to go to iTunes. And like, people forget that now, if you want to download a podcast, you get your phone up, you get the app, you download it. But back in the day, you had to go to iTunes, you had to download it, then you had to drag it across to your device. It just wasn't a simple process. So I created the website so everyone just had a place to go to look and see that we were legit. But the first ever person we interviewed was Kai Owen, who played Reese in Torchwood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in 2010, just Vyri's website, just filled out the contact information, said we'd love to chat with him. And then, yeah, he came on. The second person was Aisha Antoine, who was Dee Dee Blasco in Midnight.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't remember them all in order, but yeah, she was the second one. And then the feedback we were getting was like, oh, these interviews are really good. You should carry these on. So I've interviewed a lot of Doctor Who people, but then obviously we also covered different films and TV shows and stuff. So we've had other people on.
Okay. Well, that's really cool. And congratulations for over a decade of experience in interviewing. That is that is majorly impressive.
In a while.
Apparently you enjoy it, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I love talking to people like this. I love
Hmm.
just having this conversation. And you know, Gregor, we should never have met. Considering where we are in the world, our paths should never have crossed, but they have,
Right.
thanks to social media and the internet. And now we're having this connection, and people are watching it. And you know, I've made friends via podcasting, like people I'm going to invite to my wedding that I've made because they host another podcast that I listen to, and one day we collaborated and stuff. And that's such a great thing. Imagine COVID in 1997. How lonely that would have been for everyone.
Wow. Now that's a thought right there. Wow. Yeah, it really is amazing. And in this case of you and I meeting this way,
Hmm.
I would have to contribute that to Twitter,
Yeah.
because that's where I ran into you. And I'm like, okay, that that was funny, and this is a Doctor Who person. Let's follow this person. And then I click that weird little tick up at the top that it doesn't even say what it's for, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, and then it'll show me what this guy is saying, and that's where I learned about your podcast and went and listened to some episodes of that, and I saw that you interviewed people, and then I was like, you know what? Let's see if this guy if he wants to meet on Zoom and do an interview. And then of course someone announced Doctor Who Podcast Day, which is this
Hmm.
upcoming Wednesday. D- do you happen to know who is behind organizing Doctor Who Podcast Day?
I don't, but I think
Yeah,
one of the people is Dan, who hosts Type 40. He's been getting in touch with links and stuff for
right.
some talk that's happening. But as in, I don't know who first created the idea. I don't know.
Okay. It to me it seems to be something aligning with the Long Island Doctor Who
Mm.
convention, which I think that's what it's called. There is a Doctor Who convention coming up in Long Island, and I think it's called the Long Island Doctor Who Convention, because when I'm seeing the Doctor Who Podcast Day mentions, um, it's always in the same tweets with that mentions of the convention. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
n- now that's interesting that you mentioned Dan over at Type 40.
Mm.
Dan definitely deserves a shout out during Doctor Who Podcast Day or Doctor Who Podcast Week. Type 40 is the very first video Doctor Who podcast that I started to watch, and I thought it was very interesting. And I actually got to meet up with him too. I actually was able to interview Dan Hadley, and it was via Zoom. So,
Mm.
so you watch Type 40?
I do. I love that show because
Hmm.
everybody's got a different opinion on that
Yeah.
show, and they're all respectful of each other. And there's no sometimes it gets a little heated, but you know they all like each other. There's no animosity. There's no tribalism. And yeah, I just think it makes a more interesting conversation when you have two people that are utterly opposed to this idea, rather than listening to a podcast where people are like, yeah, I like that. Yeah, me too. It's just
Yeah.
definitely more enjoyable as a listener.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's one of the best podcasts out there,
Hmm.
if not currently the best Doctor Who podcast. I like the one Doctor Who Live. Um, lately, I have missed a couple of those episodes, and I really miss it. Was because of work, and I miss seeing that. I do remember one of the first times I watched it, I'm like, okay, well, this is offensive. And what it was is I was offended that someone else had a view which was completely the opposite of mine. Not just as in a little bit different, completely the opposite of mine. Someone that I did not agree with. And I thought, okay, well, this is a little bit chaotic. But as I kept watching it, I finally learned, all right, this guy Dan Hadley is neutral. And
Yeah.
these people on this panel may have opposing opinions. And you know what? That is perfectly fine. And once I realized that and got that, I realized the true value in the Type 40 podcast, in particular the Type 40 live, because they're live streaming. Have you ever done a live stream?
I did one of their ones last week, actually. Mm.
You were on Type 40?
Yeah, I can't remember what we were talking about now. I
Okay.
think like a news roundup of, oh yeah, we talked about the new sonic screwdriver and how it sold out and stuff.
Oh man, you were on that episode. I missed that because I was at work. That what a bummer.
Dan is a very good moderator of those panels. And what's really good is he uses people's names. So he's very engaging. So he'd be like, oh, that was a good, Charlotte. What do you think about this? Martyn, do you agree with? And yeah, he's just the perfect host for that type of show.
Dan is excellent. And you know what? Even though it's a shame that I missed that live, I had no idea that you were on that. You can go back because if you go to the Type 40 YouTube website, those are recorded. So now that I know, I'm going to go watch that episode and check out your engagement on there. That's really cool. I was on one of them one time, but we were talking about Star Trek. So um, it was really fun. The people are genuinely nice. So obviously you enjoy movies because your podcasts are based on movies. But I'm wondering, um, out of music, movies, or television, uh, do you have a favorite movies, music, or television?
That's a difficult one.
Okay,
Listen to
maybe
music.
all three.
I've got my Spotify and I'll listen to that. I would say movies because when I was a teenager, I had a friend called Robert, and we would go and see whatever the new release was on a Friday. Even if we knew nothing about it, we would say, right, we're going to meet at the cinema at 6, and whatever new release was on closest till 6 o'clock, we would see. And I
Really?
just this glorious time in my life where I was like 15, 16, and I would just go to the cinema and just see something that I wouldn't normally have chosen to go see. And I saw some gems that way, like Little Voice, which is it's a film starring Jane Horrocks. I would never have gone to see that, but I saw that on one of those Fridays. Great, I love that film now. It's one of my favorite films.
And what? Well, I'm sorry. What did you say the title of that one was?
Voice.
Little
It's
Voice.
and Michael Caine in it.
Okay. Could actually you cut out there. The Zoom cut out. You said the title of that film is Little Voice.
Little Voice, yeah.
Little Voice. Okay, I want to check that out. So that's that sounds like a fun thing to do is to just go to the theater
Yeah.
and watch something randomly that just came out. I've never heard of somebody doing that before. That sounds really enjoyable.
It was, but it's too expensive to do that now. You can't just turn.
Yeah.
Cinema just put their prices up to £19 a ticket, which I think about $30 maybe in your currency. So yeah, just turn out to see something you're not sure you're going to like is you're not really going to do it. And I think that's why everyone's complaining that it's all remakes, sequels, reboots, and it's because it's so expensive to go now. People don't want to give new and original a chance. We all say we want a new and original film, but when one comes out, we look at it and we think, I don't know what that is. And we don't go and see it. But then you see there's a new Batman movie out, and you're like, oh, I know what Batman is. And you go and see it.
Okay. So it's not just you guys. Apparently, our theaters have gotten ridiculously expensive, and In a way, it's always been that way because a box of popcorn shouldn't be $15, and a box of candy that you can get at the convenience store for $2 is $7. So, but then again, those concessions are optional, but the actual ticket prices themselves have gotten just completely insane.
Yeah, yeah, and they still only earn like £1 or $1 per ticket sold. The movie theaters, they don't make as much from ticket sales as you'd think. I used to work at a cinema, and
Really?
their money from the concessions. That's why they are so expensive.
Okay. And I guess maybe after COVID, where the theaters lost so much money, since one of the most dangerous places to go, aside from the grocery store, apparently, was the theater, and we lost a lot of them. Do you think that that's why ticket prices are so high these days?
It could be. I mean, yeah, they most cinemas don't actually own the building they're in; they rent them. So yeah, I guess
Oh,
maybe gone up. Maybe I don't know. They still have to pay rent and stuff like that on the stuff. You still have the fridges running to keep the drinks that are there cool. Yeah, maybe yeah. Everything's kind of going up now. There's inflation worldwide, and I think there is a bit of a correlation with COVID.
okay. Yeah, very well could be. Um, so let me throw this out to you. Woke, the word woke and wokeness in films and TV. And just a little disclaimer here. My feeling on woke is that it's only polite. And I think that a person being woke and realizing that there are other people out there, um, it is respectful. However, when you have corporations that are making, like Disney, that are making films and shoving woke onto people, which seems to be some people feel that way. What are your feelings about the current state of films in regards to them being woke? Is it too much? Is it not enough? Any
Well,
feelings on that?
slowly seeing that all be reversed now because
Right.
it's not been as profitable as Hollywood thought it was. So if you pay attention to all the showrunners that have recently been let go of shows and the ones that are replacing them, you can kind of see the correlation there. I think, yeah, you know what? We should be more mindful of opportunities and stories that we're telling. And I remember, like, I got mixed race kids. My ex was black. Well, she still is black. I didn't take that off her in the divorce. Um, I remember my son being like 3 or 4, and he was questioning why there's nobody like him on TV.
Really?
And yeah, and we're like, oh, yeah, just hadn't occurred to me. So we need to be mindful of that. But marketing ruins everything. So as soon as a company thinks it's profitable
Mm.
to be, they'll go full in on that until it's not, and then they'll go back to the way it used to be. But I don't think businesses should have a social conscience as such, because you
Right.
please everybody, and
Hmm.
you see all these things, like you'll see Ferrari and BMW and all those during the month of July. They'll put rainbows on everything, yet they'll still do business in Saudi Arabia or China or anywhere where being gay is illegal. And I just think that's performative activism. In my mind, that is worse than just doing nothing. Pretending you're aligning yourself with this group of people, this underrepresented group of people, because it's profitable in that country but not in the other country. It's just disgusting to me. You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
I know, they've got the bottom line and stuff, but I don't see how somebody like Mercedes can, in the UK, can put out pride flags on all their social media. But if you look up Mercedes Saudi Arabia, they're not mentioning it.
Right. Well, I like the way you put that because I agree with you 100%. And I don't think that I've ever heard a better answer than that. And it sounds particularly wonderful with your accent.
But
So,
I think woke started off as a good thing. It started off
right.
as these people are underrepresented. gay actors aren't getting these roles. This type of actor isn't getting this role. Disabled actors aren't getting the same opportunities. That's brilliant. We should be looking at that. But we need to be mindful of not letting these companies exploit that for profit.
Right. Exactly.
Then what happens is then the general ticket going audience, they're like, oh, I went to see that film that had the dwarf lead, but it wasn't very good. And then that subconsciously puts a bias in their head. And then the next film that comes out that's got a dwarf lead, they think, well, that last one wasn't really good. And yeah, I think that we need to be mindful of doing that. And yeah, absolutely. Disney, what annoys me most is Disney. They all make a big song and dance about how they've got a gay scene in Jungle Cruise. They've got Jack Whitehall who's playing a gay character and he's openly gay, but he comes out to the Rock in a standalone scene completely away from the action that they can clip out for China. And I just think that's just so disingenuous. If you're really an ally, you would not be releasing that film in China.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Annoys me.
that's wow. What a way of putting it. Well, thank you for answering that. That is the best description that I've ever heard. Because being woke is actually polite. People should have already been woke a long time ago. Why all of a sudden are corporations trying to shove it on us? And I think you pretty much nailed it right there. So
most people want everyone to have equal opportunities, and
yeah,
I don't think anyone's actively against. Well, probably there are. You probably find them in some corners of the internet, but I don't associate with anyone who's like, fuck this group of people or
right.
But yeah, we need to be mindful of not letting them exploit it, because then when that bubble bursts, people will say it's because of the woke area.
Yeah.
And I do think maybe some writers have been hired that weren't quite ready for being the showrunner of a show yet because of woke ideology. Maybe. Mm-hmm. And maybe that would have a more detrimental knock-on effect than if they hadn't done that.
Do you happen to recall when you first started watching Doctor Who, and do you have a doctor?
I didn't discover Doctor Who until 2005. So I knew of it. I knew what it was. Like when you grow up in Britain, it's kind of in your DNA. So like I knew who Tom Baker was. I knew what a Dalek was. I even knew who Sarah Jane Smith was, but I'd never actually seen the show because it was cancelled when I was about 7. So around the time I would have been starting to watch it, it just wasn't there. And it just wasn't in my orbit. My mum and dad certainly weren't going to spend like 20 quid to get a video of something they didn't know if I would like it. And I remember seeing the He's Back and It's About Time trailers for Paul McGann when I was like 14. I thought, I should watch that Doctor Who thing. And then I just forgot it was on and never saw it. But yeah, I remember the big build up to Doctor Who coming back in 2005. And yeah, I fully got in on that. As for my favorite Doctor is Sylvester McCoy. I've gone back and I've watched his era and his Big Finish. I do consider him my Doctor, even though I wasn't watching it when he was the Doctor.
Okay, cool. So you didn't experience the what the British call the wilderness years. Here, people call it the famine years. I don't know how common that is, but I'm very familiar with the term the wilderness years, because if you tell anyone in the UK the wilderness years, they instantly know what you're talking about. But so with you being 7 when the show ended in 1989, you didn't really have an experience of missing Doctor Who and wishing it was back.
Yeah, I knew what it was. It was there, and then one day it wasn't, and then I just didn't think about it again. I preferred the A Team when I was 7. I was always watching. That's why I loved it. And they used to put Doctor Who on the A Team on at the same time, so I was always watching the A Team on TV. But you know what's really weird is I remember going into a Virgin Megastore one day, and it would have been around 98, 99. And I was buying a CD, can't remember which one. And the woman behind the counter went, "Oh, these Doctor Who books are free if you want to take them."
Really?
Doctor Who? Why would I want a Doctor Who book? And I didn't take them. And in the since I've since learned that they were like the new adventures that Virgin had the rights for at the time that now go for insane money online.
Yeah.
I them for free, and I was just like, eh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Three of those in particular are very expensive. The Dying Days, which I recently was able to pick up. I don't typically pay that much money for a book, but I put what's called a snipe in on eBay. There's an external site which it is allowed. A lot of people don't know about it, but you can put a snipe in, so you don't have to sit there and be present when the auction ends. And I accidentally won the Dying Days for a good price, and I hope that happens with Lung Barrow.
What did your wife say when you told her how much you spent on the book?
She didn't say anything at all. And what I told her was that this is an investment. I said this book usually sells for way more than this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use latex gloves and I'm going to read this one time and then I'm going to sell it for more. And I guess that answer was good with her. So
Got a PDF of it.
Yeah, PDF. Yeah, that's probably the more logical way to go than to get this rare book where I don't even know how many of them there were. From what I understand, The Dying Days was released like the day before that company lost their license ended. So I think it was only on sale for like one day. So do you have any boxes of those in your attic or your basement?
Well, some of the Target novelizations and some of the new Who books. I've actually got two New Adventures books. I can't remember which ones, but my friend gave them to me years ago when I first discovered Doctor Who. He said, "Oh, I've got doubles of these," and he gave me two of them. But yeah, that's it. I've never sought them out because a lot of them are ridiculously priced.
Yeah.
And if I could go back in the TARDIS now to that point when I was in Virgin and they were like, "Take these books," I would take them.
No doubt. And maybe invest in a couple of cases of brand new mint condition ones. So so you said you skipped the 96 movie, and that's interesting. I can see that being easy to do. And I'm wondering, at what point did you, I'm sure that you've seen it now, and at what point did you go back and watch it?
It was after Series 1 in 2005. Because
Okay.
what classic fans don't remember is that how impenetrable it was for a new fan in 2005, because they weren't releasing the DVDs in order. They were releasing them in order they knew would sell. So I was always like, where do I start? And then I get this story where there's these companions I don't know. And then I get this story and there's companions I don't know. And it's a different doctor. How did this doctor turn into that doctor? And it just wasn't easy to work out. In 2005, the internet wasn't what it is now. It wasn't that easy to just go on and find this stuff out. It certainly wasn't for me. So yeah, I picked that up. I went into, I think, HMV, and I picked it up because I knew the TV movie was one and done. So I thought, right, if I want to dip my toe into classic Who, this is the perfect place to go, because you see the Doctor regenerate at the beginning and then it ends with a new Doctor. So I knew that was the perfect place to go for. So yeah, it was after watching Series 1 in 2005.
Okay. That's right. I don't believe that the streaming was available in 2005. Yeah. Now, I had no idea that they were releasing those DVDs out of order. And what that reminds me of is here in the States, we watched Doctor Who on PBS, the public broadcasting service, and they would always just broadcast them out of order. So you'd have no idea what was going on. So what did you think of the TV movie?
When I first watched it, I didn't like it. But I've since come around. I've rewatched it a few times over the years, and I've come to like it. And it's really weird because my fiance had never seen it until last year, and I put it on because after The Power of the Doctor, when Paul McGann was in, she was like, "When was Paul McGann the Doctor?" So we watched that, and she hit on something that I hadn't realized before because I'd had years and years of Doctor Who fans screaming, "The Americans ruined it." Everyone involved with that TV movie commissioned it, to the writer, to the director, to the network executive, was British. And when we were watching it, my fiance said, "This feels like what a British person thinks American TV is." I was like, "On it, you're on it." And then we started looking up, and we were like, "Yep, Jeffrey Sachs. Okay, he was born in America, but raised mostly in Britain." And then just all these different people that we were looking up, we were like, "Wow, yeah, just it is what British people think American TV is." So the Americans didn't ruin it. It was British people writing what they thought American TV was.
Right. You know, and also, even though it depicted San Francisco, it was filmed in Canada on
Yeah,
Vancouver Island. Yeah. Um, so the next question I have here is: were you watching Rose live in 2005 when Doctor Who returned?
I did. Yeah, it was. My sister had just got engaged to her ex-husband, so you can guess how well that relationship went. But we were having like big
I
celebratory
just got that.
party. So we went round to his parents, and it's the first time like we're meeting the extended family. So we're like, we'd met his parents and his brother and sister, but we hadn't met like cousins and uncles and stuff. And there must have been about 50 people in the house. And yeah, all the kids wanted to watch Doctor Who. So we all sat down together. And it's one of the best viewing experiences I've ever had. Is there was just a room of 50 people, maybe about 20 kids. All the kids were sitting on the floor, cross-legged, watching the TV, and everyone liked it. People laughed in the right moments. The kids were scared in the right moments, and everyone was like, "You know what? That was actually good." And from that moment is when I became a Doctor Who fan.
Wow, that is awesome. So, what about Torchwood? Did you watch or do you enjoy Torchwood?
Like Torchwood, yeah. Don't get me wrong. The first series is really ropey. It's really ropey, but there is some gold in there. And I mentioned my fiance just there. She actually prefers Torchwood to Doctor Who. She just thinks it's more fun. It's just more disposable, and you can just blitz through it. And yeah, I love Torchwood. Yeah,
Okay. Now, uh, that's interesting to hear that you became a Doctor Who fan with the broadcast of Rose. That is absolutely beautiful.
yeah.
When did you create your first website? I guess with you being uh, having over a decade of experience under your belt, I'm assuming it would have been a website.
So yeah, the podcast came first, and that started in 2010. And then yeah, I just kept getting asked when I was asking people to come on the podcast, "What's your website?"
Mhm.
So around 2011, I brought badwilf.co.uk because .com was taken by someone else. And that guy actually emailed me once, and he was like, "For $6,000, you can have badwilf.com." I said, "I'm not
Really?
paying." Yeah, and then I just waited him out. So eventually, I picked it up like 2 weeks later after it expired.
Well, that's cool. Um, you ever heard of outpostgallifrey.com?
Yeah, I think I've got an account, but I went on there once. I had a look, and it was just a dumpster fire, and I thought I'm not going back on there again.
Yeah, yeah, same here. That was a long time ago. The Timescales actually has outpostgallifrey.com domain now. So it it was a complete accident. The Timescales was going to close because the original person that started it uh, decided that he was no longer going to run it. So I contacted him and said, "Hey, there's a lot of content on here. I enjoy reading it, so certainly other people must. Have you considered selling it instead of closing it?" And he said, "Yeah." So my brother and I were able to purchase the site to prevent it from closing. And he was like, "Oh, do you want the domain name outpostgallifrey.com? Because I have it." And I said, "Yeah, sure." I remember that being a news site a long time ago. It was probably one of the first Doctor Who websites. So that's how you do it. You just wait it out, wait for the domain to expire. Forget buying it for £6,000.
When over timescales, because that is such a great website. It's kind of like, I don't know, IMDb, but for Doctor Who stuff.
Yeah, it back when I found out that it was going to close, it had about 3,000 stories listed. I think it was only Big Finish stories, and it took a lot of time, but I actually went through and added all of the other stories, and I decided that maybe comics should be on here because there's stories that are uh, pure Doctor Who, and some of them are beautiful. So I added all the comics, and I thought, okay, well, why stop there? Let's just go ahead and add every book that there is. And it took a couple of years, and I've heard people refer to it as being the IMDb of Doctor Who. And thank you for that kind of comment. It is a fun site, and I hope that it helps people to be able to wade through the massive amount of Doctor Who and Torchwood and Big Finish and everything that there is, and find something that aligns to their likes, because apparently there are over 30,000 Doctor Who stories.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very surprising. And I wonder if somebody uh, young today, somebody maybe 20 years old, were to start consuming a Doctor Who story uh, every day, how many years that would take to finally read, watch, or listen to all 30,000 plus of them.
And it's still ongoing. So
Yeah,
it's an ending quest.
yeah, yeah. There was new there's been new Doctor Who content in the last week. And quite, and it's not even on the air right now. So um now, do you listen to Big Finish?
Yeah, I do. So in 2018, that's when my hips got really bad. So I became kind of semi housebound from then, unable to work. So Big Finish were kind of my saving grace, because I would be looking for something to do, but there would be times where I had to alternate between standing and sitting because sitting would be too painful. So I was like,
Hmm.
well, what can I do whilst I'm just kind of pacing the flat, trying to sort my hips out? What can I do? And I was like, Big Finish. So I consumed a lot of Big Finish in the past 5 years, but I first started listening to them on and off, probably about 2007. It was with the Paul McGann, Sheridan Smith series that I started listening to Big Finish.
Okay. Now, you know what? You just made me realize something here. As far as sitting, because I had asked you for an hour and I've still got like 9 questions here. Are you doing okay? Do we?
Now, so yeah, we're all good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Now, you have hosted some panels and some interviews at comic conventions. That sounds very interesting. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, well, one day just got an email from someone saying, "Hey, would you like to?" I think it was one of the MCMs, like early on, like would have been about 2011, and I just hosted. I can't remember who I was interviewing. It was some film that was coming out that I hadn't seen, but I just kind of Wikipedia'd it and bluffed my way and did it. But yeah, it was a great experience, and I've done a lot of press panels at cons and stuff, and interviewed some great people. Yeah, cut back on that since 2018, obviously with the hip issues and stuff, but I hope to get back to that when I am fully functioning.
Okay. Very good. That sounds fascinating, and I'd like to follow up on that with you a little bit more in the future. Um, do you do you have an educational background in arts or performing arts?
I did a level performing arts thing in college, but since that, no.
Okay. Um, Now, you have been interviewed by ITV News,
Yeah.
Starburst Magazine, the Daily Mail, and BBC America. What?
So around 2015, my good friend Barry from Geek Syndicate got in touch, and there was an ill child. He's 14 years old, and he had to miss going to a Doctor Who convention because he was too ill to go. I can't remember what condition he had, but it was quite serious, and it was potentially life threatening. So one of his mum's friends discovered Geek Syndicate. I was like, oh, maybe they could help. So me and Geek Syndicate worked together to try and get messages and stuff from people involved with Doctor Who. I know his name's in the dirt at the moment, but Noel Clarke wrote like a really nice message for this guy in a book and sent it to him. And Frank Skinner and Katie Manning and stuff sent him autographed pictures. But the big one, Peter Capaldi visited him in hospital when he was the doctor.
Oh, wow.
He spent an hour with this kid, and then he spent an hour going around the kids' ward, meeting all the other sick kids. Then he spent an hour just going around to every ward in the hospital, meeting every patient that was there. And then he spent an hour going around all the staff so the staff could get pictures and stuff. So Peter Capaldi was at this hospital for about 5 hours one day. And yeah, me and Geek Syndicate basically arranged that. And with the BBC, we just kept emailing. And we didn't know he was going. One day it came out. And yeah, after that, BBC America wanted a quote from me and stuff. And so did the other sites.
Wow. Okay, see, I remember that. And I thought that's a tearjerker right there. And I very much remember that. And I had no idea that someday I would actually meet and hear that story firsthand from somebody that played a role in making that happen, Martyn. Wow. Thank you.
Nope.
That's absolutely awesome. Okay, well, that answers that question. Now, when you started your podcast and then the website, so that people could you could answer the question when people are like, "What is your website?" When you started the podcast and then your website, as we both know, creating content is time consuming, and some of the time that it's not easy. And what I'm wondering is, did you have mentors or support around you? Did you have anyone that would prop you up and say, okay, yes, you're good at this, keep doing that? Did you have mentors?
Not to that extent, because it was still relatively new territory at the time. So I would ask people like Siobhan Galashon, I would ask her for advice, and my friends at Geek Syndicate. I discovered them around that time. So yeah, I would just kind of, okay, what kind of mic should I get? What editing software should I use? Should I do this? Should I do that? But yeah, it was mostly just a learning curve. It was just trial and error. It was plugging it into Audacity and seeing what happened.
Okay. Now, every person that I have interviewed in arts and performing arts, and I do consider podcasting to be a performing art. Every single person that I have spoken with, from artists to actors to directors, everyone in the process of creating arts has experienced something which is called rejection. And it's something, you know what I'm talking about. It's something where something you are working on just doesn't go down the way that you wanted it to. Have you had anything like that happen, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it happens a lot. You know, you reach out to a guest to come on and they say no. The funniest ones are when I've reached out to, because I'm on some PR lists, like different PR companies get in touch for me to do interviews. The funniest ones are like when I've reached out to that person's agent prior to that. I'm like, oh, well, they've got this book coming out. We'd love to chat with them. And they say, no, they're too busy. And then coincidentally, 3 weeks later, a person emails me and like, hey, Martyn, we think you'd be a great fit for it happened with Danny Trejo. So I wanted to get Danny Trejo, agent first, and they were like, no, he's too busy, not interested. And then the PR company that was doing the book press tour, I knew the PR person who got in touch and went, I think you'd be a great fit to do this interview. And that was complete coincidence. They didn't know that I reached out for the agent. That's happened a couple of times where I'm like, oh yeah, that's really like kind of kismet. And that was meant to be. And I just always have a little chuckle to myself.
That's awesome. Okay, so for anyone young or old that may be looking at this interview in the future, trying to learn from you, somebody that may have a goal of just absolutely knocking the ball out of the park in podcasting for over a decade. Maybe somebody's looking ahead and they want to do something big, and they want to look to someone that has already done it, such as yourself. Would you have any best advice that you could give them?
All right, so if you're starting podcasting, you don't need the most expensive equipment to get going. So all of the early episodes of Bad Wilf were recorded on a 40 quid USB mic that I got for my birthday from my ex. And you'd be amazed how good an iPhone microphone sounds nowadays. If you kind of cocoon that in a duvet or a quilt or a soft blanket or something, you can make an iPhone microphone sound really, really good. So yeah, you don't need the most expensive equipment to start. I mean, it's all nice to have. I've got like this really nice Rodecaster Pro now, and it's easier than not having it. But you don't need that when you're starting. Also, get your podcast on a thing called Gaana, Gaana. It's India's biggest streaming platform for like music and podcasts. It's basically their equivalent of Spotify. There's a huge Indian population that speak English that go to Gaana for their content. And when I put Running Down Corridors on Gaana, our downloads increased by about 43% because suddenly there was a untapped market that we weren't catering to before.
Wow. Okay. But that's, I would have never expected. As soon as you said India, I started thinking, wait a second, what percentage of people in India speak English? So you say that's Gaana, Gaana?
Yeah, get it on
Okay.
Gaana.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people don't need the most expensive equipment. They don't need to go and set up a studio with $10,000 worth of microphones.
Like if you could see right now, I've got a duvet up on the window in front of me to stop traffic noise. You'd be amazed what you can do with a duvet, just a thick duvet kind of around you. I mean, you want to be in a quiet room. You don't want to be in your kitchen with the fridge going off. But yeah, you want to pick the quietest room in your house. And if you can somehow attach a curtain up in front of you, like a duvet up in front of you, just to stop that noise bouncing back, then yeah, go for it, because you will sound so much better than those that don't. And I think the problem we're having now is so many actors, so many famous people with an audience are coming into podcasting. It's harder for the independent person to get discovered now. So you want to make it sound as good as possible, but that can be achieved with like a $40 mic. It's possible.
Okay. Okay, very good advice. Thank you, Martyn. It's not hard and it doesn't have to be expensive.
No.
Okay, awesome. Do you happen to have a favorite charity? And that is yes, if you've heard that question before, I learned that from Toby Hadoke. That was a question that he puts in all of his interviews.
Yeah, a lot of people in my family have had cancer. My uncle passed away of skin cancer, sadly. So any cancer-based charity.
Okay.
So yeah,
Cancer-based charities.
if you've got a cancer-based charity and you can, please donate.
Okay. Thank you, Martyn. And where do you like to be found online? I'm assuming that's at badwilf.com.
Yeah, badwilf.com. I'm at badwilf on most social media. I don't know how many more social media accounts I'm going to take out. My main one is Twitter. I'll be on there until it gets shut off, I guess.
Okay. Well, I think that I think Twitter will keep going. It seems to be the largest. Did you get on that new Facebook one? What is that called?
Yeah.
Threads?
Yeah, I started an account. I post every so often, but it's not my main one. I just kind of joined it to secure the username.
Gotcha. Okay.
That counts if somebody wanted to go there. There was a, but I don't think I'll join Blue Sky or Mastodon or anything like that. I'm too old for it at this point.
I'm with you on that. And there's only so many hours in the day, right? Um, so, okay, thank you for hanging in there with me. I was going to ask you about music and conventions, but you pretty much already answered conventions.
Let's see music.
Okay, let's do music. Are you a concert goer by any chance?
I used to be.
Okay.
Basically, if any band or artist has come out since my son was born in 2008, I've not heard of them. So I like what I like, and I've kept up with bands that I like Metallica, Foo Fighters, stuff like that over the years. I've kept up with them. But as for any new artists, I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, I used to go to the Download Festival every year. I used to go to Glastonbury and Reading and stuff like that. But I'm too old to be sleeping in a tent now.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. So, okay, listen, this was supposed to be an interview and not an inquisition, and I've already gone way, way over what I asked you for, and I thank you. So I have got one final question, and I know that you're going to like this. Are you excited about the return of RTD2, which some fans have coined? I think that's beautiful. I wish I had thought of it. And are you excited about the 3 upcoming specials with David Tennant and Catherine Tate coming back, and then of course the Ncuti Gatwa era?
Yeah, I don't know if Russell T Davies is going to be able to catapult it back to where it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we're ever going to get back to the days where Doctor Who was the biggest show on TV, especially in the UK. I think there's too many options now. Our attention is too diverted. There's different streaming services. Even consoles are better now than they were in 2005. More people are gaming. There's just more vying for our attention. But he certainly won't make it any worse. It won't get, and that's not me having to go at Chibnall and Whittaker. People always blame Chibnall and Whittaker for dwindling viewing figures. And honestly, if you look into it, that all started with the Capaldi era. And people like to argue and contest this. But if you look at Peter Capaldi's overnight figures for Series 10, his last one, they're about neck and neck with what Jodie Whittaker got. So I think somewhere in the last decade, people stopped caring about Doctor Who. For whatever reason, the general audience hasn't seen it. My sister's boyfriend genuinely thought Day of the Doctor was the last ever episode.
Really?
I remember, yeah, we were watching the football one day, and the first trailer for Jodie Whittaker's one came up. And he went, "Oh, they're bringing Doctor Who back." And I was like, it's not gone anywhere. Like, you've had Peter Capaldi. No idea. So the general audience, if you don't give it to them every year, and I think what happened as well during the Peter Capaldi era is sometimes it was on in April, sometimes it was on in September, sometimes it was on in March, sometimes it went out at 7, sometimes it went out at 9. And when you don't have that consistency, the audience drift away. And they may never go back. Like Jared, who I started Bad Wilf with, he got 3 or 4 episodes into Capaldi's first series, and he was like, "I'm done." And he's never been back. They've never got him back to Doctor Who. So it'd be interesting to see how many people go back to David Tennant, because a lot of fans feel David Tennant's overused in the Doctor Who space. And yeah, if you consume Big Finish and the comics and the books, maybe that's true. But if you're just a casual viewer of Doctor Who, he left in 2010, he came back in 2013, and you've not seen him for 10 years. So hopefully David Tennant is going to draw in all these old fans that have since stopped watching the show for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't like a female doctor. Maybe they didn't like a grumpy old Scottish kit as the Doctor. Who knows? But I think he's going to bring a lot of those people back, and hopefully they stay for Ncuti Gatwa. But I think the days of Doctor Who getting 10 million in the overnights, they're long and gone. I think the most Doctor Who can hope for now is 4 million.
Now, is that including streaming?
That I'm just going on the overnight figures, but
Right.
I was streaming maybe about 5 million.
Okay.
But overnights don't really matter now anymore. But we're Doctor Who fans. We like to obsess over these things. But yeah, I just can't see a reality where Doctor Who's consistently getting 10 million, 8 million while they're in the viewing figures anymore. We just don't live in that time anymore. And a lot of Doctor Who fans want it back on Saturday nights. I think TV's moved on since then. Doctor Who is no longer fit for a Saturday night, I would say. I think Chris Chibnall was right to move the date, but I wouldn't have moved it to Sunday. I would have moved it to Friday. Because if you got it on in Friday, then when it goes to the international audience on Saturday morning, they're in. Families are in on a Friday evening, and then it gives everyone the weekend to watch it. I think Friday at 7 or 7:30 is the sweet spot for Doctor
Who. Okay. So when these specials come out here in a couple of months, you're going to be sitting there with the TV on, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be watching them live if I can. Yeah. Hopefully get the kids to watch it, because the kids haven't really watched it since Matt Smith.
Okay.
Right.
And I'll be watching along with you. I don't know how we're going to get it here. It's either going to be on BBC America or Disney. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll be watching it together. Okay, Martyn. It was really nice to meet you, and thank you for your time. And I am very honored to have been able to meet a really cool person today. Thank you so much.
It's been fun. Anytime you want me back, I'll come on and do it.
You are always welcome back. Okay.
Right.
And I will I'll see you around online.
All right, bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.